It's the Musers, the podcast, Cowboys edition. Football friends, George Dunham, Bob Sturm, where we talk Cowboys every week. And we got a lot to talk about this week, from the first preseason game of the season to a big signing by the Cowboys to fights at training camp. But Bob, let's start with last week I gave you a prize.
Yeah.
I brought you back a hat from Pebble Beach.
Right.
Because you had thrown yours out on the ice in a Stars playoff game, just because you couldn't help yourself and you threw your favorite golf hat.
Probably the first time Mikko Rantanen's name has made Football Friends.
Yeah, I think so. But he will now forever be remembered because of that. And I understand this week you have a surprise for me.
I do. I did not have to purchase it at the pro shop, but just to let the people know, we normally record Football Friends on a Wednesday, right?
Correct.
And so the recording, depending on when you're hearing it, we can't determine when you push play. And frankly, it's not even available on this particular day. But this particular day, George, is August 19th. In the year of our Lord 20 and 26. Do you agree with that?
I will agree with that, yes.
Okay. Would you be so kind as to find our Football Friends group text and take a look at what I just sent you?
Okay, I knew this anniversary was coming up this week. I forgot it was today. This may be the reason why the Cowboys haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1996.
I thought, given the Cold Hard Facts episode was last week, that this birthday, I mean, it is the 30th birthday of this occasion, that I feel like it should be entered into evidence for exactly what you just referenced.
Well, it was the day that the Cowboys introduced, no question, the worst mascot in the state of Texas, and no question, the worst mascot in the National Football League, a Mother Hubbard by the name of Rowdy.
Rowdy.
Who is goofy looking. He's just, I think, nightmare fuel for kids. He's not funny. He doesn't have good bits. Whoever's in the uniform, I'm sure they're a nice person. It's not an attack on them. It's just the marketing of the Cowboys. From day one, I thought, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And he'll do your kid's birthday party and he'll ruin a live shot after a game, but he's just awful. And for those who listen to Football Friends who don't know, I have hard rules on mascots. They should be entertaining. They should be fun for kids. They should be funny for adults. Is anything better than the Carolina Panther jumping on a live ball in the back of the end zone? No. Is there anything better than the Chicago Bear doing a dance on his butt while scooting across the end zone? Absolutely not. And that's because they have either a snout, a beak, or a tail, and they're animals. They're funny. Yeah. Rowdy, not funny. And yes, they introduced him on August 19th, 1996, and this flippin' organization has done nothing since.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the gist of this. So I wasn't trying to fire you up in terms of angering you. I do know this does trigger you. And in fact, if any picture of Rowdy would trigger you, I'm thinking the idea of him wearing the hot pink receiver gloves for breast cancer awareness would particularly get you. And as you can see there, he is adding that onto his outfit. But I just have to say, one of the craziest things I've ever seen was the time that DeMarvion Overshone told us that Agent Zero, the man who wore zero at Texas, was prohibited from wearing zero with the Cowboys. I want to say his first two seasons because it was Rowdy's number, and thankfully, common sense took over that a real live Dallas Cowboy could wear his own number. And did Rowdy switch to 00, or was Rowdy always 00? I don't remember how it got sorted out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've always every time I see that goofy face, I try to turn away and I don't try to learn his number. He's just the worst. And Charlotte, what are you going to do about Rowdy? Anybody in Cowboys marketing, what are you going to do about him? He sucks. He's never been good.
The timing of this, though, is what's incredible. And not to belabor the point, but the Cowboys' last Super Bowl was January, I want to say 28th, 1996.
Yeah.
6 months later, Rowdy was born. And the drought is now entering season 31. Well, guess what, George? Rowdy is entering season 31. Does anybody see the connection between the Cowboys mascot mistake? Sorry, Rowdy, but it is, and this Super Bowl drought. And if you were the Jones family, to not address this with great, almost with as much enthusiasm as signing Von Miller, I just can't believe on this, the 30th birthday of Rowdy, that there aren't internal investigations presently taking place, George, to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah. I can't either. And it's just, I don't know. And you see him in commercials. You see him in the pro shop. Are you serious? There's really kids out. If they want to sell things, don't you think if they had a blue Labrador retriever, almost like a Bluey ripoff, or as we brought up, Cowboy Cookie Monster. What's wrong about that? Do a deal with Sesame Street. That would sell. That would be fun for kids. I would laugh at it as an adult. I'm just a big kid anyway, and Rowdy ruins it. Someone sent me a picture of pseudo Rowdy. It looks like Rowdy at Super Bowl 30, and they said, "Well, explain this thing," because Rowdy was at Super Bowl 30. Well, they may have put him there, I don't know, doing something pregame, but he was not the official mascot yet.
Okay,
until today.
He wasn't. I will say, though, there is some question about the origins, and you were here, and I was no doubt killing it in Lynchburg, Virginia at the time. but I do feel like in the research of this very important investigative journalism story, it was couched as maybe in 94 or 95, this particular iteration was actually called like Big D or something. Do you know anything about that?
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
And then I want to say August 19th, 1996 was the day they said, no, his name is Rowdy, or unveiled it as Rowdy is the branding or whatever it is. But yes, today is the 30th anniversary of one of the bigger mistakes in Cowboy history. So happy birthday to him, of course. But at the same time, if there was a public execution in the town square, we would get the kids to avert their eyes so they don't have to go through that sort of tragedy and trauma. But I do think the 30 year thing is just too overwhelming evidence. Like, bro, we're not saying it's your fault, but
right. The dude that's in there can be the same guy,
but it
just
might
put a different costume on him. Put him in a Cookie Monster outfit, or
we can't prove it's your fault.
Horse or cow or something.
We can't prove it's your fault, but we also can't prove it's not your fault. So just to be clear on things, we're trying to try some new things here in year 31, and one is we're going to try to go deep into January. And maybe even mess around with an NFC Championship game or a Super Bowl, but to do that, you have to go, and then we toss them into the sea and
get rid of Rowdy, and just as a placeholder, Cowboy Cookie Monster. Think of the possibilities.
Love it.
Do some sort of deal with a marketing agreement with Sesame Street, and how many Cowboy Cookie Monsters could you sell at Christmas, Jerry? Come on.
Oh, my gosh. Put a little Santa hat on Cookie Monster. Just be adorable. Everybody would love it. Maybe Cowboy Big Bird could visit, or Cowboy Oscar the Grouch. But
the Cowboys are never going to win. Yes, they are. They're going to win this year. Oh, man, that would be so great.
It would be. So definitely it wasn't a Pebble Beach hat, but I could not let August 19th.
I'm glad you brought that up. I knew that anniversary was coming up, and doggone if it's not today. And, Yeah, just think of the big video board at AT&T Stadium after a touchdown, and it's Cookie Monster and Michael Irvin. Touchdown!
Man, I'm going to turn my mic off so this playlet can breathe. That sounds amazing.
Cookie Monster, you know we're going to do it to him. Oh, yeah, I know, Michael. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. God, man, just right there. There's 4 good ideas right there with Cowboy Cookie Monster.
Look what Peter just put in the Football Friends group chat. Can you see that?
Stand by.
That's amazing.
Now he's jumping on the pile here. Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
That's it. That's Cookie Monster with the foam finger #1.
Boy, his physique is a little over the top. I don't know if Cookie Monster's been in the weight room or not, but
he is kind of jacked, but he still has the googly eyes. That's perfect. All right, I'm going to send that to Charlotte, and we'll see if we can get that going before the season opener.
I love it.
By the way, do they have all the gravel out of AT&T Stadium from the World Cup build-up field? I assume that's all taken care of by now.
I assume so. I assume they had it done before the calendar turned to August. But what the first home preseason game is probably
28th.
The 28th. I don't know where Zach Bryan's concert and all the other stuff they've done there. But yeah, I assume you would not even know the World Cup was there. All the good things they did to that stadium for the World Cup have been undone. So I think we are back underway.
Oh, Peter says yes. They had some K-pop. Who was it? BTS? Is that who it is? Is that who was at AT&T Stadium? I think so. They had some K-pop thing going on there last week. So.
Well, to all our K-pop listeners and this Cowboy crossover podcast with K-pop fans, just know we're thinking about you guys, and we hope you had a great summer.
And know this, that for the first time since 2017, the Cowboys won their preseason opener, Bob, and it was against the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Now it was the backup Cowboys against the backup Seahawks, but I don't know what it is. It does make you feel better. Not that this game was some sort of artistic thing of beauty, but they did get a win, and I don't know. It confirms something to the message that Shoddy throws out, doesn't it? That and let's start on this side of the ball. Doesn't it give some confirmation to guys on the defensive side who are thinking, hey, this guy may know what he's talking about, this 34-year-old Christian Parker?
Yeah. I mean, vibes are good, right? The game was not a work of art necessarily, but it added another piece of evidence that the defense is being developed. And I'll just go back, and I even wrote about this morning on the side, is just, I think, and see if you agree with this, Georgie, there are 2 main objectives for a defense at all times. One is we're all coordinated together on the same page, doing our job as an 11-man unit to stop our opponents in the best way possible. So when they talk about communication, we all need to be on the same page. We all need to know, whose job is whose, and we can't beat ourselves by miscommunication or blown assignment. What happened here? I thought you had him. No, I thought you had him. So that's job one, is everybody. They say defensive coordinator. Why? Because a defense has to be coordinated. It's not 1-on-1. It's 11-on-11. And we all have to know our jobs. And then number 2, we don't want the opponent to know what we're doing, so they can't attack us very easily. So once we all get on the same page, now it's our job to confuse the opponent on what page we're all actually on. And that's why we talk about disguise and deception and what do they call it? Late rotation, Georgie, of the safeties. So you could be in too high, and then we're going to rotate at the snap to a single high. Well, why do we do that? Because we're trying not to be easy to read. And so when I saw Saturday night, I saw a defense that seemed pretty well coordinated. Not perfect. I mean, Kalen Carson had a night. Malachi Lawrence lost contained. There were things we need to clean up. But in general, I did not see guys running free, did not see massive missed assignments and massive mistakes. So that's number one. And then number two, there were times where I thought the Cowboys had some really interesting scheme wrinkles. They didn't show a lot, but they did seem to have the Seahawks offense a little confused on what the Cowboys defense was doing. Very vanilla. It's a preseason opener. But these are two things I think are the most basic things about a new defense that you want to see. And I think we're seeing them. And again, it's only August 19th. So by the time we get to the season opener, which is a little ways down the road, September 13th at New York on Sunday Night Football, this will become second nature, and then you'll have the ones in there, and now we start to see the full breadth of this build, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I have down on the defensive side, I love the defensive pursuit, and I love the aggressiveness, and that didn't always net in a tackle for loss or a sack or an interception, but let's start here. How about Malachi Lawrence, who got a pretty good amount of snaps, and the other Cowboys #1 draft pick who doesn't get as much talk as Caleb Downs, who also got a few plays. He didn't get much. I don't know if you saw even 1/100th of what you're going to see out of Downs.
No.
That was, and I wonder how much we're going to see of him for the rest of the preseason. But for Malachi Lawrence, I saw kind of what they were talking about on draft day and what they have been pumping him up. But I've also read, and I've kind of noticed, and I didn't know what to call this, that false step that he has, that some are thinking he's got to get rid of that. And well, I'm thinking that's fixable, isn't it? Just on the steps you make and what is your lead foot and how you line up when you're standing up and all that. I think they can fix that. I saw a couple of plays where he got close. I saw a couple of plays where he forced a high pass, and I saw a little something.
Yeah, I think you're right. So Lawrence played 17 snaps. Caleb Downs played 7. I would just like to start there and say I didn't expect Caleb Downs was going to play much at all in the preseason, so I was very pleasantly surprised when I saw him on the field. That was news to me, and maybe my cynicism of Cowboys football from time to time is a little over the top, because I didn't think he would play at all, and not a lot of people were pushing back on that, and then he's out there, so that's a really good sign for me. Let's see. Also, LT Overton played those 17 snaps. I'm looking at the rookie class. Did not see Devin Moore. I don't know if you did, the Florida corner. So I don't know if he was dealing with something injury wise. I should probably know that, but anyway, yeah. So that false step by Malachi Lawrence, there's no doubt it's there. And he was still very effective at the college level with it, but at the NFL level, these tackles are too good for you to sort of, it's almost like in the cartoon, George, which I'll speak to you in cartoons, cartoon talk.
That's a language I understand. Yes.
But whether it's the Roadrunner or Speedy Gonzalez or whoever, their legs would start moving in place before they take off, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. Is don't waste movement at the snap. It's hard enough to beat a offensive tackle, so we need your first step to be a decisive stride forward, to sort of marry your footwork with the timing of the play, as we want your footwork to be as efficient as possible. We do not want wasted movement. We do not want like gather steps, right? So this is the same with like CeeDee Lamb when he's getting his release going, is we want each step to be intentional and not sort of like a bad habit to gather our explosiveness or our plan. We don't want to be thinking up a plan on the fly. So with Malachi Lawrence, I think his pass rush moves are really good and really well seasoned for a college player, but his footwork is sort of self-taught, and not to always reference my golf game, but there's a lot of self-taught errors because our brain is not as smart as great coaches. So they're trying to clean that up, and it can be cleaned up, but it does take probably hundreds of reps for your brain to unlearn something, and that's the process he's going through right now. And I think that's even tied to Von Miller. Is we don't dislike Malachi Lawrence as an organization. We're just saying it's going to take a little time for him to be the killer we need him to be. And in the meantime, maybe we go get somebody for 1 year to, on one hand, and we'll get into this more in a bit, but help, but also to be a better option right now. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with either of those. It doesn't mean the Cowboys are disappointed in their first round pick. It just means we got some rough edges for you to become the guy we need you to be. So I overall the defense, other than Kalen Carson, who I think is in a real fight to even make this team, I didn't see anything that got me too excited in either direction. Caleb Downs was used in a very vanilla way, overshown as well. So, you want to see everything. They don't want to show you anything because they don't want to risk anything. They don't want the Giants and Washington to be prepared for what they want to show them in weeks 1 and 2, where these are not only early games, George, that can set the tone for your season, but it's also early division games. And if you can put those two in the bank, you are so far ahead of schedule. If you can go 2-0 in the division to start the season while you are installing a new defense. So I don't blame the Cowboys for playing super vanilla. I love it.
Yeah. And some of these guys, most of these guys are fighting to make the team, but I think Isaiah Land is interesting.
Yep.
I thought he flashed. I thought Shamar James, who we liked at some points last year, but he got put in a lot of bad positions at linebacker. I thought he looked pretty good.
Yep.
Also, Julius Wood, who is a guy who's had a good training camp, and at safety, he was part of that goal line stand after whatever Trayshawn Holden was thinking. I have no idea. On special teams, which Shoddy said they're going to address that this week. I thought special teams were horse hockey on Saturday. And sometimes you see that in the preseason. You're playing so many guys, you haven't zeroed in on the emphasis of what you're going to do. But that was really bad. Those are just some of the names that stood out to me. And also what we're going to do about James Houston, who had back-to-back sacks. I think he's in on the rotation this year. I think he is. And my guy, Maris Leofau, I thought did some things. Maybe he's at a position, Bob, where they can line him up. And I think this is what he did a lot of this at Notre Dame, is just line him up and say, go get that dude. And I think he can do some of that.
Yeah, and I want to go back. Overshown didn't play, so I'm sorry. I misspoke there. Of course he didn't play.
They don't want him on the field.
They don't want him on the field. He did a
sideline interview, and I thought he did really well.
That's right. Maybe that's how his name was in my brain. But yes, I want to be clear and go back and fix that. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there are guys who are probably not a big part of the 2 deep, but could still make the team by special teams, and then earn their spot a little bit better. And I think Wood is one of those, that safety. And I think Justin Barron, who has really shown out plenty in this training camp and in this preseason game. I really like Barron. I don't know what to make of him completely, but
he's a man who had 3 interceptions in a scrimmage against the Rams.
That's right. And Elijah Clark is another one. That's another guy that they probably think is, maybe a CJ Goodwin type. The Houston conversation pairs well with Von Miller, so I'm going to package on that one. But it's interesting. They got a lot of guys out there who are, we aren't positive if they'll make the team. And I don't know about Curtis Robinson. But he played the most snaps. I don't know if he's got a roster spot or not. I assume he might. Marquise Bell is a fringe guy. Bridges is a fringe guy. D. Winters. Let's see. I don't see D. I see D. Withers on there. As
Withers,
Yeah, that's the defensive
lineman.
tackle. Totally different. So I'm looking at the snap counts here, guys, and all I have is his last name. So I apologize as I try to see who played the most in these spots. But, the first preseason game, we certainly don't want to overbake what we saw, but we also understand that, as we flip it over to the offense, a guy like Camden Brown is now a bit of a household name around here, and people now expect him to make the team. And isn't that something where you can go from completely anonymous to, man, this guy's got to make the team in one night? So that's kind of the beauty of what preseason football can be.
Okay, I know I mentioned him on the radio show last week, and I thought I mentioned him here on Football Friends when we're out of training camp. As the practices that I watched, every time I watched 11 on 11,
yeah,
I would look down at my flip card and say, "Who is 6?"
Me too.
That's Camden Brown, and man, he's just got a little something to him, and yeah, he's a long shot out of Georgia Southern where he excelled. I believe he started his college career at Auburn, so you can see it's not as if he was just some dude off the street. He has ability, and through the years, going all the way back to Bill Bates in 1980, I believe, which was his rookie year, if you combine really good practices at training camp with the things the coaches are seeing on film, and you do something in the preseason, you've got a chance to make the team. It's a really crowded list of players at wide receiver, but man, Camden Brown has a chance in this thing, and maybe by what Trayshawn Holden did, he was the free agent who garnered so much discussion last year. Maybe it's Brown who makes the team, or maybe they both do, but yeah, he's in the mix.
Yeah, and there's guys like him all over the football world who go to Auburn as a extremely exciting prospect, and then get caught up in one or two coaching changes. And the new guy just, in this case, Hugh Freeze, just did not consider him a top priority. Now, I will say Cam Coleman wasn't a huge priority for Hugh Freeze at all times, and that's why he's at Texas now. But Cam Coleman might be a top 5 pick in this coming draft. So guys get lost in programs that are fully chaotic, and make no mistake, the last 5 years of Auburn football has been fully chaotic for a number of reasons and a number of coaches. And so he's in that mix for 3 years, and then he portals to Georgia Southern. Now, when you enter the portal, this is something we always talk about. Guys all think that the best schools are going to come calling for them, and that's just not the case for most guys. And Camden Brown was one of those guys who, the portal did not go nuts for him. And Clay Helton at Georgia Southern said, bring it. And then he leads the country in touchdowns last year. He was a monster at Georgia Southern. So I talked to our friend Dane Brugler about, hey, what's the deal with Camden Brown? Because I think he had him like the 67th or 65th best wide receiver in this rookie class. So he did not expect him to get drafted. And I said, what was the deal? Well, he created a ton of buzz at the Hula Bowl, he said. He separated himself as a top wide receiver there, but then he ran a 4.59 40, and his 3-cone was pretty awful, and all the buzz went away. So it's good to see him taking advantage of his opportunity. And I went back, and his 3-cone 7.42 is awful. It's the 9th percentile for wide receivers.
But we're not playing cones, Bob.
No, we're not.
We're playing against cornerbacks with really bad breath.
But that's fair. But boy, even the 40, you run a 4.6, they're saying, well, that's a decent time for a tight end, but you're a wide receiver, so I don't know. But then you go out there and you make plays, and he's gifted in height, weight, arm length is really good. But where he's really fantastic in testing, George, is his 10-yard split is the 98th percentile. So all of the wide receivers getting out of the gates and getting down the field, he's 98th percentile. His bench press, 93rd percentile. His vertical jump, 78th percentile. So what you have here is a big, strong athlete. And I'll be honest, man, of his 3 catches on Saturday, they're all great. But the one that really jumped out at me was his dig in the early third quarter where he's running across the field and Joe Milton puts it on him, and then he's got
nice.
A little something. The 2 touchdowns are great. The one-hand catch is great. The Bomberooski from Sam Howell was nice. But man, show me you running across the field and running away from a corner who kind of gets out physicaled at the top of the stem, and that's good stuff. I'll tell you what, that's what they wanted from Jonathan Mingo. So if you're looking for a roster battle, they probably only have one big wide receiver spot, and it's probably those 2 guys. And special teams will impact this, but you're not sliding Camden Brown through waivers at this point. If you cut him, he's gone.
Yeah, I think so. Speaking of Jonathan Mingo, you may not have been that impressed with what he did. He did make a couple of catches on slants, which I thought were pretty good. And Schottenheimer brought it up this week. He made the hustle play of, here it is, a preseason game. Everyone's disjointed. And there was a big punt return that could have been a touchdown had it not been for the hustle of Mingo. And the head coach brought that up this week. That's little things like that will determine, okay, he makes the roster and we'll put him on special teams because he can make plays like that. And Mingo is, he's got some league experience, and I wonder if that gives him maybe a slight advantage over Brown. I don't know.
Well, the other thing that might be the disadvantage, though, is that Mingo's in his walk year, and if you get Camden Brown, you're at the start of the rookie contract, and so you got, not only do you get several years of him, but you get several years of him at nothing. So that's, that it all goes into it, right? Can you help me on special teams? Okay, then what's your contract like? And if you have a good year for us, do you get way more expensive and we lose you? Or are you on the start of a rookie deal and you can kind of do a lot of the same things? So that's why Camden Brown is now a clear and present danger to guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Jonathan Mingo, guys like that. Well, they just cut Trayshawn Holden. So yeah, it's now the time of year where I know Georgie and I really love the discussions about, figuring out who's the 52nd guy on your roster and who's 53rd versus who's 54th and 55th, because that's what Hard Knocks tries to dig into. And that's what, preseason football is all about. You're just not going to risk your top 15 guys anymore in today's NFL. So now it's more, we're going to need you down the road if somebody gets hurt. So who is that guy going to be that we're going to lock into our roster?
So the Cowboys are 1-0 in the preseason, now looking to go to 2-0 this week, Bob, as they take on the Arizona Cardinals. We'll have some thoughts on that later in this edition. But up next, we learned the day after the Cowboys played the Seahawks that they have made a big signing to try to help out the defense, and let's talk about that next. Okay, making big news for the Cowboys this week was the fact that they have signed Texas native and Texas A&M Aggie. You can't say former Aggie. You're never a former Aggie.
That's what I hear.
Von Miller, who comes in here with the most career sacks and is everyone has been talking about this week, a guy who is headed to Canton as a terrific outside linebacker / defensive end edge player. It's been rumored that the Cowboys were interested, and they make this signing. There's a lot of different ways to go here. Let me ask you this. Do you think what they saw on Saturday confirmed, yeah, we need to sign Von Miller, or do you think they were already going to do this anyway?
Yeah, I think they were already doing it. And I think they're already doing it, but the weight was twofold. One, I'm sure Von was seeing what sort of market he had, and could he do better than 5 million, 5.5, which, who can blame him? Some years teams will give out $10 and $12 million to a designated pass rusher. Heck, what did the Cowboys give Clowney last year? I feel like it was pretty good money.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
So, one, he's probably seen what his market is, and none of these guys at that age want to go to training camp anyway. And then the other thing was I really think the Cowboys wanted to get Quinn and Williams done so that they could sort of move money out of 26 and use it on one or two more late additions. And I think Von Miller's one, and I think there may actually still be another one out there, maybe at the linebacker or cornerback position, although I think they're reasonably happy with corner right now. I still get the sense that linebacker is anyone's guess. In particular, I really think Jayshon Barham may be a much bigger part of their plan than we know right now. But anyway, let's focus on Von. So I really think they wanted to move that money out so that they could just plug Von into that money when they restructure. I don't know if you buy that, but people.
No, I think that's sound.
Yeah, and people say, is this a why not just get Clowney and let's go back? I first of all, Clowney's gone. He signed a similar deal in Houston, but if we can rewind before that, even they replaced Clowney with Rashawn Gary, and we can like it, we can believe it's a better fix or not, but they wanted to go get a guy who I think is 27 for a guy who was 32 going on 33. And one of the reasons they wanted that is they think Rashawn Gary is a really good room guy, and Clowney did not probably want to get here till August 15th, and that's a difference. They want you plugged into their full season program next to Quinnen, next to Kenny Clark, and they want to build in the springtime and kind of get some unity. And so I don't think Clowney and Von Miller are the comps. I think it was Gary and Clowney, and once they passed on Clowney, if they could add Von Miller for $5 million, why wouldn't you want to do that? So I'll be honest, and not to say the football friends may be in disagreement here, but I certainly enjoy hearing you guys on the radio, and I don't think that we're all on the same page. Where my head's like, I can't believe you can add Von Miller to this, because I do think I'm just getting him in here to pinch hit. I don't think I would be nearly as excited about Von Miller if I thought that was my best option at edge.
He was starting. Yeah. No, agreed. And yeah, I've said a few negative things the last couple of days about it, but I've also prefaced it by saying I like the signing. I think that's absolutely. Yeah. If you can bring Von Miller in here for $5 million, and I think you're right about that, about they were able to do it after extending Quinn and Williams. I only bring up two possible negatives, and one is when you're 37, you just don't know when that wall is going to appear in front of you,
right.
and that could be this year. And it doesn't change my opinion in that Rashawn Gary, Donovan Ezeraku, Sam Williams, you're going to put Barham in there, Malachi Lawrence, they need those guys. I think if, and maybe by giving that role that he's just hey, you come in when it's 3rd and 13, that he can flourish and he can have 13 sacks maybe this year.
Yeah.
But and if he does that, great. But if he leads this team with 9 sacks, I think there's a problem. I still think there is an emphasis on the other guys that I mentioned. That's who needs to be the the heat from the outside and the run defense from the outside. Those are the guys that are going to key this possible improvement. That's all I'm saying.
Well, let's start with this. There's on average about 65 snaps a game for a defense, and obviously for an offense. And so you're trying to distribute those 65 snaps, and there are certain positions on the defense that can play every snap. Safety is one of them. Corner is one of them. But usually if you're in the front 7, you are playing a role and not every snap, just to keep freshness. This is an advantage a defense has, because every offensive lineman should be playing every snap. And on the defense, it's a rotation, usually of 8 guys for 4 positions. And so but it's not a 50-50 job share. These guys stop the run. These guys rush the passer. in this case, Von Miller will probably play about 20 snaps a game out of the 65. And for me, those are all your third downs and probably your 2-minute drills. When I need a stop late in a game, I want Von Miller on the field. And why do I want Von Miller on the field? Because there are almost no examples in this league of anybody rushing the passer at his level. Now, is his level anywhere close to what it was? Of course not. But as recently as last year, he led his team in sacks, and that is meaningful to me. Now, you might say, well, Bob, didn't James Houston lead the Cowboys in sacks last year? Yes, he did. I think with 5.5, and Von had 9, and it was on a terrible defense for sure. But I think that even should be a little bit impressive, because if you're always behind because your team stinks, well, then you don't get to rush the passer much. And this guy still kind of was a difference maker rushing the passer last year. I think 9 sacks is a lot of sacks for a guy on a pretty lousy defense. I think 9 would lead a lot of teams. So, I want my young guys to play, but I wanted to play this audio that you guys played on your show of Jerry talking about going to get Von Miller, because I think he left a context clue in there that I wanted to discuss.
Okay. Well, you get obviously, you get someone that's been there and done that, and he trains with our consulting trainer. And boy, he had been telling us for all this past year, boy, if we could get him, he knew firsthand because he works with him all the time and knew that he could help us. And of course, that trainer is working with all of our guys. Right. And so we feel real good. But the main thing is, Michael Irvin said it. I was just sitting with him up during practice. He said he's always wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy, play for the Cowboys. And Irvin said that means a lot. It does mean a lot. He's a veteran that can really bring a great aspect to the team from the team concept. Like I said, really wants to be here. We want him here. And we believe he can come in here and really can give us some additional pressure on that other quarterback.
Okay, so my context clue is, first of all, to explain that Jerry Jones made it as confusing as possible by calling...
And he loves Michael Irvin so much.
Yes, but by calling B.T. Jordan a trainer is incredibly confusing, because B.T. Jordan is not a trainer. He is a pass rush specialist. He is a pass rush coach. And that's who he's talking about. He did not say B.T. Jordan, but the Cowboys hired this coach who is known for his work in the pass rush space to help coach up these guys. I don't even know that on like Wikipedia or even on Cowboys.com he's listed on the coaching staff. So
he is not. He is not in their media guide as a coach.
Okay, so maybe they designate him as a trainer to
consultant. I think is what they call him. Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I agree with that. He's a pass rush consultant. Yeah. Well, B.T. Jordan is who he is, partly because of his work in the Metroplex at pass rush training, specifically for the origin stories of Von Miller and Myles Garrett. Now, there's more to it than that, and I don't know the guy personally, and I'm not trying to claim that I'm a historian on his entire backstory, but I would say B.T. Jordan has worked with Von Miller since Von Miller was at Texas A&M, and there's a very good chance that they have worked together all the time, and there's a very good chance that B.T. Jordan is the reason Von Miller's on the Cowboys right now, not the chicken industry and not the DeSoto High School thing or any of that. And I just want to go back 10 years when Von Miller and I think B.T. Jordan and also maybe Max Crosby sort of well, Crosby wasn't old enough, I suppose, but Von Miller organized the initial sack summit. And this is the, what do they call the offensive line one with Duke? Masterminds, right? Offensive line masterminds. Mm-hmm. Well, each of these position groups have their own summer convention. Well, Von Miller it's his. Like this, the sack summit only exists because Von Miller created a chance for pass rushers to sort of work with each other around the league, and they do it every year. They did it this summer. And so it's all connected is what I'm trying to say, that Von Miller has taken it upon himself to make sure the next generation knows what they're doing when they're trying to, make their careers as good as they can be and attack quarterbacks. And the fact that he has that in him tells me that Malachi Lawrence and Donovan Ezaraku in particular should be thrilled that now BT Jordan and Von Miller are in their lives.
Yeah.
So I look at it this way. If all Von Miller does is make those guys better, he's worth $5 million to me.
Sure.
If all he does is go get a half dozen sacks and help me close out 2 or 3 wins this year, he's worth that money. The combination of the two make him a complete no-brainer in my mind. And then, and I know you know this, but I think it's worth telling our audience, pass rusher is a position that ages actually quite well. And I'm not trying to guarantee that he is going to be in that group. But boy, if you go back and look at like 37-year-olds or 38-year-olds, and you just to go down the list of guys who have had massive pass rush seasons, even at that advanced age, and whether it's Reggie White or Kevin Green or Chris Dolman or Coy Bacon or Julius Peppers or Cameron Jordan or Too Tall Jones had 10 sacks at age 36, and you just start going down the list. I don't think it's crazy to think that Von Miller can get 8 to 10 sacks here with the Cowboys this year.
No, I don't either.
And by the way, here's the other thing. Sorry, I'm passionate about this one. I just think it's important that we don't prioritize the individual agendas of our young draft picks at the expense of competing right here, right now. If we have been saying the window is now, then the train can't always wait on the 21-year-old figuring it out. And so maybe this is let's figure this out as we go. If the Cowboys start 2-6, heaven forbid, but if they do, well, now Von Miller is invaluable to me. Now I will say, let's get the kids out there and let's start looking to 2027 already, which, is going to make us all feel like Dave Campo again and reaching for our aching balls. But if they're 6-2, well, then we're playing for right here, right now, and Von Miller can help me right here, right now at these key moments. So I think we have to sort of usher along 2 separate agendas at the same time, Georgie. The win now, but also the develop the kids so we can keep winning later. I think they can work together, and that's why. Von Miller at 3 years, for $36 million? Absolutely not. 1 for 5? Bro.
Yeah.
Every day of the week for me.
Yeah, I think it could work out really well for Dallas. And as Von Miller said in his opening press conference this week in Oxnard, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer when it comes to being a teammate. So he's all about the team, and he will tell you he is the best teammate in the history of the league, Bob.
Well,
but it's about the team.
Yes, and I'm a big fan of anybody who votes themselves a first ballot Hall of Famer at anything. He doesn't lack of confidence, and we like that. But just even the symmetry of our good friend DeMarcus Ware, who I love so much. He's just the nicest guy you've ever met, but he also murdered quarterbacks for a living. And, the fact that he went to Denver with a young Von Miller and found this second act to his career and won a Super Bowl there and was a huge part of it. But Von Miller was even a more huge. My grammar's great. But Von Miller won the Super Bowl MVP of that Super Bowl, of course, by getting to Cam Newton over and over again. And of course, DeMarcus Ware was awesome. But now the symmetry of maybe returning the favor by coming back to Dallas and helping these kids along as DeMarcus Ware cheers in the background that now Von finally made it to Dallas. And maybe that's part of the DeMarcus Ware to the Broncos trade is getting, the twilight of Von Miller back, and maybe there's a run here. I don't know, and obviously I might be getting carried away with who Von Miller is and what an impact he's had, from the area, high school, college, pro. I'm excited that he's on the team, and I'm even more excited that he's on the team in a low leverage spot where we're just asking him to pinch hit in a few late game situations in the playoffs in October. I need you to come out of the dugout and pinch hit for me in a couple big spots, because I believe you can still have a couple great moments that can help our team win. So yeah. I'm excited for all of that.
Yeah, amen. I'm all for it. Can't wait to see it and see what he has left to try to get this defense cranked up. Okay, what do we remember about this moment in Cowboys history, and what do we see with the Cowboys and the Cardinals in preseason game number 2? Let's talk about that next. Okay, Bob has become quite the Cowboys historian since going back in the Wayback Machine and taking us back 50 years. And we did that last year. That was the 75 season for the Cowboys, the first wild card team to ever make it to a Super Bowl before losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers 21-17. And then came 1976. And the thing that I remember about this season in a broad sense, they had a tough time running the football that year, and it bit them in the playoffs, and they got beat by the Rams at Texas Stadium. Some crazy score like 14-12 or something. And Billy Joe Dupree couldn't quite make a first down on 4th and something after a Staubach pass, and it was very, very close. But the other thing I remember about that season, and again, this is 1976, so if this happened today, it would be everywhere.
Yes.
In social media, it'd be on ESPN. We didn't have all that back in 1976. But I do remember getting ready for the season and this story coming about and thinking, wow, that's weird. And this guy was from Texas and was the toast of the town after what he did in 1974 on Thanksgiving Day. And that's Clint Longley, who had a very interesting Cowboy career.
The Mad Bomber, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a crazy story, George, because Roger Staubach is such a legend and such a adored historical figure. You want to talk about unassailable in terms of athletes from this market. With all due respect to Dirk and Nolan Ryan, Roger is probably the one above them all. And to hear that he had not one but 2 altercations with his backup quarterback in the same week in August of 1976 is kind of hard to believe.
It is.
And, as I went back and I go through the Star Telegram and the Morning News and just try to piece the day by day together, it's really interesting. And I may have this wrong because as a young man who at the time I think I was 4, I didn't have a great grasp for much of anything, let alone Dallas Cowboys football of the time. But the scribes back then kind of paint a picture where Clint Longley's chances of making the roster don't look great because there's this new kid named Danny White here who can play quarterback, but he can also punt, and that might mean Mitch Hoops is in trouble too. And there's just he's the new thing. Well,
I would like to think of Danny as the first dual threat quarterback.
I think
he
you're
can
right.
Pass and punt.
Yes, he can, and that was meaningful, man. That really was, and so Danny got hurt in July at a scrimmage, and this allowed Longley to play a little bit more. But while he's playing more, it feels like his attitude is, what's the use? I'm probably out of here. And the whole time, and this is what's really interesting, is he seemed to hate Roger. And I don't necessarily know the origin of why he hated Roger, but boy, did he explode and start talking about how Roger thinks he's a coach. He's been trying to provoke me. He's involved in my business. I thought he was just a player, but he's so self-righteous. And so Longley is like going after Roger. Like, you think you're a coach? You're just a quarterback like me, man. And I guess this triggered Clint to a point where He wanted to work by himself. Roger said that Clint asked to not have to go through drills with the other quarterbacks. I don't know if that gave him anxiety, but it sounds like he was in a really bad mood and kind of looking for an opportunity to snap. And so that Tuesday, Roger is throwing a pass to Drew Pearson, and I guess Roger dropped the ball, and Clint Longley had something to say, and I think he decided, well, since Roger dropped the ball, I'll throw the ball to Drew Pearson. I guess he had another ball behind Roger, and he threw it to Pearson, but Pearson stopped. And now Longley is asking why he stopped with some sarcastic comment that apparently Drew didn't hear, but Roger heard it. And so Roger snaps at Longley, and before long, Roger said, why don't we go talk about this over on the baseball field, which I assume must be nearby at Thousand Oaks.
Yeah.
And they go over there, and the next thing you know, people thought they were going to talk, but Roger's now on top of Clint Longley, and teammates are separating them. And so immediately after that, Roger's telling the media, look, it's not a big deal. We're moving on. I got no problem with Clint. It was just, a couple guys, getting excited at the end of training camp. As he said, as far as I'm concerned, the whole thing's over. Clint's doing a super job. I just want to forget the whole thing. Well, the next day, all the newspapers covered this fight. And in particular, the LA Times ran Frank Luxa's story from the Times Herald. And
great Frank Luxa.
Well, and the LA Times, Georgie, is available in Thousand Oaks. And so you can't get the Morning News or the Star Telegram out there, but you can get the LA papers, and the LA papers are actually carrying Frank Luxa's story. And in the story, Clint Longley is reading it, and he's reading the account that's saying Roger had him pinned to the ground. And as opposed to Longley saying, man, we were idiots a couple days ago, that shouldn't have happened, he's actually reading it and he's getting mad that they're claiming Roger beat him up and Roger outdid him in the fight. And so this is making Clint even more angry at Roger because, of course, they don't like each other.
Yeah.
And Longley realizes he's pretty much done. So remember, the first incident happened Tuesday. This is now Thursday. And apparently, according to the stories, Clint Longley then packed his stuff. Now, the team was leaving Thousand Oaks in a couple days, but it was a little early to have your stuff all packed, especially before the Thursday practice. Well, during the Thursday practice, they're all getting dressed in the locker room, and Roger is pulling his shoulder pads over his head and putting them on. And at the same time, allegedly, Longley walks up to him and punches him as hard as he can right in the face with a sucker punch. This knocks Roger back into a scale, and again, according to Roger, it wasn't the punch, but it was the scale that opened up a massive gash on his forehead, and blood is going everywhere. Teammates are now seeing this. Longley now runs out of there and apparently ran right to his luggage, hopped in a car, allegedly driven by Alan Stone of WRR, George, and right to LAX. And again, according to the stories, none of the Cowboys ever talked to him ever again.
No. And it's recapped really well in A Football Life on Roger.
Yes.
And including footage of Drew Pearson about the first fight saying, yeah, man, I looked over there and Roger's using some Navy stuff on him, man. And I see feet up in the air, and they cut to Hollywood Henderson. He said, yeah, man, Roger was in Vietnam. You're from Abilene. When talking about Clint Longley, they loved Roger and still love Roger. And, they were going to stick up. That if they could have joined the fight, Clint Longley really would have been in trouble because they're going to fight for Roger. And it was bizarre. It was bizarre for the time, and I look back at it. And like I said, if that happened, could you imagine?
No.
If Joe Milton and Dak got into it and had a couple of days like that, it would be everywhere.
Yeah, the news cycle could not handle it nowadays on any NFL team. That the two quarterbacks, especially one who's won a Super Bowl. So now you're like, okay, so this is Mahomes or this is Jalen Hurts or something like that, and their backup who is about to get cut and is just going to drive right to the airport and never talk to any of them again wants one final punch at QB1 to kind of let him know how he feels on the way out. And
crazy.
Steve Sable, who is no longer with us, but Clint Longley is. Steve Sable said the last any of us saw of Clint Longley, he was selling carpet remnants out of the back of a van in Marfa, Texas, which all of those oddly specific details appealed to my sense of randomness as somebody who enjoys driving through Marfa from time to time, thinking that's where Clint Longley was set up, cracked me up quite a bit.
Oh, man, what a crazy story from Cowboys history.
50 years ago.
50 years ago, way back in Thousand Oaks. And, yeah, that was a long time ago. Got to go to Thousand Oaks in 1988, and that was, turns out, the last training camp for Tom Landry.
Yeah.
But how about this? My memory, when I think of that, I think of practice fields that maybe had a dozen people watching practice. You know, fans would come out for scrimmages. The old blue-white game used to be played there.
Yeah.
But what really stands out as a reporter there, and I was working for the flagship station at the time, and we had a dorm room where we would stay, and my suite mate was David Moore, who later worked for the Dallas Morning News. He has since retired, but at the time he worked for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. But our little pseudo studio where we would send back tape and interviews and I would send back voicers of, hey, the Cowboys worked out today and this is what happened. It was in the coach's dorm. So it was not unusual for me to be sending back audio at 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night California time. And Coach Landry one night peeked his head in and said, wow, you keep coach's hours in there, don't you? And I said, yes, sir. And it's like, oh, my gosh, that was Tom Landry. And it was just so bizarre. How about that? A member of the media, sending back tape. And I looked down the hall and I saw him go in his room and said, oh, my gosh, this is just right down the hall from where Coach Landry is sleeping. And from that moment on, I never did work late at night because I didn't want to keep him up. But normally he was up. The other key thing about that is just next door down was, you'll appreciate this, Bob, it was a room that had an ice cream like cart that you would see at, Brahms
baby.
And it was for the coaches. But if you knew the coaches were watching film, don't think those who worked for our radio station used to make a run through there for some late night ice cream, which was the best.
Yeah, we need our ice cream.
But I was always paranoid that Landry was going to walk in, and here I am scooping out some, some cookies and cream or something, and he's going to say, "What the heck's going on?"
That's
a different time.
That's awesome. Yeah, it would have taken some guts, but I believe in you. But the whole thing though does. If we may land the plane here, I would say the whole thing does get me thinking about QB2 a little bit, and as we even bring it back to 2026, I didn't want this episode to end without hearing your thoughts on QB2, because that was a factor in Seattle, and it will be a factor in Arizona, is Sam Howell versus Joe Milton. I thought they both helped themselves on Saturday night in Seattle.
I think they're running in a dead heat right now. Tell you what, Milton, I thought this at training camp, and I thought it on Saturday. I think you can see the improvement in accuracy. And some think, man, once you make it to the NFL, you can't improve that. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
And you can work on your technique, and you can work on your footwork. And he has obviously done that. I thought he ripped a couple passes that were just beauties on crossing routes, and the one that was, that Camden Brown made a great play on. The ball was placed perfectly, and I don't know if he could have thrown that pass last year. So I think he has a higher upside. In the meantime, Sam Howell, and Shoddy said as much last week, he moves the offense up and down the field, and he does it in practice, and he did it against Seattle. I think they're neck and neck.
Yeah, it's great to have two choices that you don't mind, given that we're not far from Cooper Rush versus Trey Lance or something along those lines, and where you're just like, man, I don't know if I like either of these guys. But I really liked it. I think Sam Howell does a great job in terms of recognition and pre-snap and sort of sniffing out what Seattle was throwing at him. And he's been out there. He's got experience, and there is something to be said just for – kind of the processing speed of knowing, that's, I don't want to disrespect certain quarterbacks in this league, but some of them, it's all processing speed that makes them really, really good, is that they just can figure out what you're trying to do in pre-snap and get them into the right looks and into the right reads. And also, if a blitz is coming, get the ball out to your hot as quick as you can and take profits. We can't turn down positive gains. That's the number one rule in quarterback play is to be willing to take profits. We will take a 4-yard gain over risking a 10-yard loss any day of the week. And we have to understand that the train needs to keep running on time. And so that's big. As for Joe Milton, he just has some abilities that Sam Howell will never have. And if he can leverage that and also have good processing, then he makes this a very difficult decision. I assumed when they did Howell back in the springtime that they were telling us they wanted an upgrade, but maybe they just wanted a real spirited competition. I think it's probably Howell's job to lose, but I want to see all three of these games before I get too committed to that. And I imagine they'll let Milton start with maybe not the ones, but at least the 1.5s or the 2s, and then ask Howell to play in the second half, maybe as early as this week.
Yeah, that would make some sense. On the other side of the ball, he played a little bit in their first preseason game for Arizona, which was a 27-14 win over Fernando Mendoza and the Raiders, where Mendoza looked really good. I don't think you'll see Jacoby Brissett, but I do think you'll see a lot of Gardner Minshew, who is now with his 6th NFL team in 8 years. He is well-traveled, but it's always fun to see Gardner Minshew in a game.
It is. Now, we're not going to see Jeremiah Love.
Oh,
yeah.
How about 11 carries for him and the high ankle sprain that will put him out until the regular season? We both were really big fans of his in the draft, and, man, I think he's terrific. He had a really nice hurdle run in their first preseason game, but the high ankle sprain, Bob, that's why it's not crazy to sit even your rookies in the preseason.
No, it's not. And you said 11 carries, I think 14 touches overall. Like they were, for some reason they were treating Jeremiah Love like
let's establish him here
mid-season Bijan Robinson or something like that. And I don't know if I would advise that, but Cardinals football is still Cardinals football. But to me, obviously there are other questions on the roster, but I think the two that are very fascinating for these next few games will be QB2, RB2.
Okay, yeah, that's another we got to get to next week.
Is Malik Davis still your best second running back?
Yes.
And he probably is.
I think he is, and let's talk about that next week because I know Jaden Blue has a higher ceiling, but he's not there yet, and I think
he might just be a gadget guy,
He could be, and didn't Malik Davis show us he could do this last year?
Yes.
And he's a good special teams player. All right, that's for next week, and we'll see what he does this week against the Cardinals. That'll be an interesting thing to watch on Saturday. All right, nothing like talking football with you, Bob. Thanks for another great episode, and let's look forward to next week. Thanks to Peter Welton for producing, Cowboy Marketing. Holla at us. We got to get rid of Rowdy. That's all we're saying. We got time to do this before the regular season starts. Let's make Rowdy a roster cut.
Yeah,
before the regular season starts.
I see Cookie Monster out there on waivers. We can bring him in.
Let's pick him up.
Yeah, let's do it.
And by the way, I would pay him $5 million a year because you're going to make 10 or 15 on sales for sure.
What about Cookie Monster off the edge and pass rush situations? I mean, there's just a lot of possibilities here.
That is not crazy. All right, that's Bob Sturm. I'm George Dunham. Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Musers, the podcast, Cowboys edition, Football Friends.
Yeah.